Hi everyone, and welcome to SteveO TV, where we are doing the second part of our Tale of Two Conferences. I'm Rich Gibbons, and joining me today I have got...
SteveO.
And thank you very much for joining me today, SteveO. So yeah, Tale of Two Conferences, absolutely fantastic name for a series, which we have to give all credit to you for, and I guess Shakespeare.
Yeah.
But yeah, so FinOpX, big FinOps conference. You were there.
Big. Yes.
Tell us all about it.
Yeah, San Diego. I think nearly 2,000 people this year, so like almost
Nice.
50% bigger than last year. Same hotel. It's going to be the same place next year as well, I think. And like I think I said this on the pre-record. It's the only place you go where everyone understands what you do. Um, so I went last year. I didn't go to the first year. The first year was in Austin. I didn't make that year, and then it's been in San Diego the last 2 years, and it looks like it's going to be in for another 2 years in San Diego as well. Um, it was a fantastic event, huge turnout, bigger kind of sponsorship than ever before. So because I'm doing all this research into tooling providers, that was quite interesting, just how many providers were there. It was spread across kind of like that 2 days, but on the Wednesday you could go and collect your badges, and there was a kind of a drinks reception and stuff like that. On the that was Yeah, that was the Wednesday. The Thursday and Friday were the two main days of the conference. And Saturday there was like a get together, goodbye breakfasty thing, like
Right.
out on the deck. So it spanned across 4 days. I arrived on the Tuesday just for flights and jet lag reasons. Excuse me, still tired now. And I recorded a podcast across on the Tuesday, things like that. But I just caught up with a few people. But really, it kicked off on the Thursday and the Friday.
I'm with you. So it's FinOps. It obviously, if it's 2 and a bit days, there's a lot going on. So is it mainly, talks, workshops? What kind of
Yeah,
sessions are there?
great question. So you start off with keynotes, as you do in almost in anything, right? So the keynotes lasted about an hour or so, and then you had, how many rooms were there? Did it go to like F or G? So there was significant amounts. I think five of them, A to E, were doing. Oh, and then there's the main hall. So yeah, like six, which were doing talks at any given time, which someone at the front presenting, talking to about a subject, and then at the same time there were two chalk talks and F and G going on. Chalk talks being where you have a couple of people facilitating, but you kind of get into groups. And some of these had like 80, 90 people in, and then had to kind of be shrunk down. There's like standing room only. Somebody had to kind of stop people coming into. And you would talk about a topic and then present back to the whole group, and everyone would kind of hopefully learn and share. So you had two very contrasting kind of options. One going listen to a SME, one really hitting, you don't know what you're going to get. It depends who else is in the room.
Yeah, I think that sounds like a good mix of sessions, and the wisdom conference I went to was similar in that kind of mix of, because different types of topics lend themselves to different sort of styles of conversation. And I imagine at the FinOpX conference that there's kind of more maybe sort of hands-on technical, this is how you do this thing kind of sessions. Is that right, or have I
Hmm.
made that up?
Um, there's certainly no labs or anything like that. Not like you get
Right.
at some AWS thing. So there's no one clicking on keyboards. Um, it's You do get in some of the presentations people kind of walking you through how they've approached things. Um, but no, yeah, you're quite right. I think a lot of people assume that FinOps people are real techies, and I
Mm.
think I think people like me and Frank probably don't help with that, where we do come from a technical background. But there's a huge amount of people in FinOps who aren't that way inclined, and so they scored all of the sessions 100, 200, or 300, depending on complexity, and so. Um, the 100s I think probably were relative. I didn't go to any 100s, but I think they were very high level. They were last year, um, often very interesting and generally very well presented, but they're not going into the deep darks. The 300s, some of those were going into like really quite complex concepts and maybe walking you through processes and stuff like this. That's what I did like. I think they got the balance of 100s, 200s, 300s better this year. But yeah, there's no hands-on keyboard labs. Not even though they released a certification while we were there, there wasn't anywhere to go and do that cert like you'd get at an AWS summit or a Microsoft summit. It's not quite that far. It kind of has that step away from engineering, really.
Right, that's interesting. I mean, that shows beauty of this kind of conversation. That that shifted my perception of it a little bit. So I mean, based on the numbers there must have been a huge amount of sessions. So it's going to be hard for you to choose. But what we are kind of
What did I do?
Yeah.
So day one, I went to keynote, which started with JR about the future of FinOps, where he said things like Gen AI means job security, because if you think people are wasting money on the cloud, wait until they waste it on Gen AI. So last year, I think I said the talk of the year was Ali Whitman from Disney, talking about the difference between cost reductions and savings. This year, the best keynote talk I thought was from Disney, a different lady called Ellie, just to make it confusing. And she did Burn Down the Past forecasting at Disney, where they had forecasting, they ripped it down to create something new, which solved their problem they had then, and then the problem morphed. And they were like, in reality, we've got to rip it down and start again, and not being scared of doing that. And it meant they got to a really fantastic place in how they forecast and stuff. And she was sensational. I don't know what they feed them there at Disney, but their public speaking. And Frank said, they're an entertainment company, so maybe it makes sense. But I don't know, like getting that quality of speakers like in a row, it was very impressive. What was next? Then Uber came on, and Uber talked about like invoice bots and things they have, and they found like 6.5% errors, like value errors in their invoicing from the cloud vendors in their favor, i.e., they are owed money.
Oh,
Or in the
wow.
cloud vendor's favor, if you know what I mean. So, which is staggering, and that's more than I found. And as you know, I looked after significant spend, and we found out 0.5%. I have a feeling it's because they maybe have more on a particular vendor who we did find more errors from, and who have a much more complicated situation because they manage more contract books or more pricing books. Who is next? Oh, then it was about Focus. So Focus is the FinOps open cost and usage standard, which has hit 1.0 release.
And that's is that the new certification?
The new certification came out for that as well, the Focus Analyst, which I've just passed. And so that's now a prerequisite to be a pro, which we were talking about the other day.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And then it was the cloud panel, the VPs of, there's two different sets of VPs. This was the first lot of VPs talking in quite as a panel. I found after some very exciting talks, I found that a little bit hard to follow. I could see this, when you look around and everyone is now on their phones. It was one of those very nice people on it, but it didn't quite work. So then on day one, I did chalk talks. Now, last year I only did some on day two, and they were fantastic. This year there were more people, and there were more people at the beginning of their journey. So it felt very much more like I was sharing rather than learning.
Right.
And that's fine. Like I'm all for that. That's why I do the podcast. That's why we do this. It's all about open learning, right? But sometimes when you go somewhere like that, you do want to do some learning too. And so I flipped on day two. I was like, day two, I need to do some more learning. I'm happy to share. I'm happy to teach. And I do enough of that. I want to soak in some brilliant knowledge from brilliant people. So I did Chalk Talk Cloud Optimization Beyond the Obvious, which was a cool conversation. And I had a really good group. And it's a bit tricky for me, which like they want us to go by cloud. But, I'm probably an AWS expert mostly. I wrote the commitment run book along with a few people for Google. So definitely know some stuff there. My Microsoft's fine. But so initially I was like, there's probably not enough people for Google, so maybe I should go into Google. I ended up going into an AWS group because I was able to have a deeper conversation. That was fine. Then the next one was quantifying the value of FinOps. But this is one of the problems I had. They lasted an hour and a half, which didn't feel like long. Like it didn't like drag, but you're missing 2 talks in that time.
Yeah, this is the perennial problem when you're building an agenda of because otherwise
I've missed 2 learning opportunities So it felt like a big risk going to a chalk talk, because it's all dependent on the people in the room, and I could end up getting very little value from it. Well, hopefully it's still valuable, but I'm getting relatively value from it, and I missed 2 really valuable talks. And that's the balancing act, right? Because there was so much fantastic stuff. And so I think next year I might do a chalk talk per day, rather than maybe trying to do a day of chalk talks in hindsight. So quantifying the value of FinOps was run by a friend of mine, TJ. So part of it was going along to give moral support. It was very good. I think we, as groups, didn't answer the question we were set very well, which they can't help. We talked a lot about unit economics, and so I shared quite a lot of my experience with that.
Yeah, I remember I did a podcast with TJ about unit economics a couple of years ago. So I can imagine that was a good session.
Yeah, it was. I think maybe the audience let him down a bit. We all still learned stuff, but we all kind of came up with the same answer almost, which shows that maybe we didn't answer the question properly. Making cloud sustainability actionable with FinOps was the talk I went to that day, which was from the guys at MasterCard, who are great people anyway, and Green Pixie, and our friend Matt Butcher was all there. So it was kind of, again, a bit more nice. Want to see what they're doing. I thought that was good. That was all I went to, because there was I had some meetings to do, but also the chalk talks are an hour and a half each, right? So then you've got lunch, and so that's it's a big chunk gone. And what happened? What the frustration was, in some sessions there were 3 or 4 I wanted to go to, and in another one I wasn't bothered about any of them. So that's when I'd arrange my meetings, because a lot of people kind of want to see you while they're there, right? Day 2, keynote. Infrastructure meets finance, that was with Amex. Yes. Then tooling and services, which was Mike Fuller. I was very interested in that one because I helped write the definition and also the white paper, whatever we call the thing that just went out. And then, excuse me for cough. Then we had the cloud feature announcements. So the 3 vendors came out and gave feature announcements. They were all very, very good. The Google presentation was probably the best, and had the most things out. I thought the Microsoft one had a lot coming out. The AWS one, I felt really sorry for the guy. It was meant to be John Phillips. It wasn't in the end. It was, I want to say Rich, was it? Because John couldn't make it. So about an hour before he found out he had to deliver this thing. It was one of the biggest ones, he did a great job, but that's hard, isn't it? That's hard. It's not your presentation either. So I really felt for him, but he did a good job. He'd been on the panel the day before, so we already knew him a bit, but he was a very nice guy. Then I went to a talk by Coinbase, optimizing for billions, which was really interesting, like some really complex kind of how they reduce start times, which automatically reduced cost, because you pay as soon as you switch on a VM, even if it's not ready yet, you're paying for it. So because they're at that kind of level where even that 4 minutes that you're loading a VM is cost and bits like that. So so they did that. That was really interesting. Then taking FinOps to the next level with Devere and Ziva from Wix, incredible. Probably talk of the conference for me. They brought some. There was just so many good bits, and I think we'll have to get them on here to talk about them.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
But kind of having financial incidents, so that it goes into a ticket system in the same way. So if you get an anomaly, it calls out. I thought that was brilliant. Wow. Yeah, and then this concept of 100% utilized wastage. So if you have a service like Elasticache, as an example, where you are loading stuff in memory so it can quickly be used, your memory will always look 100% utilized, because it is by design 100% utilized. But you need to look at something different. You need to look at the hit rate, which might only be 30%. Only 30% of the things in that 100% of memory are being used. Arguably, you're wasting 70%, right? But it looks like you're using 100%. So it's 100% utilized wastage of 70. So that was like mind blown. Hadn't even thought about that before. Brilliant speakers as well. So that was a great talk. Then I went to a focus one where Zoom talked, and Udom and Mike from the foundation and from the actual project talked. That was very good. And then the final one was achieving cost. It changed name just before. I think on the fly, it was achieving cost excellence, shifting left, compute optimization, and tackling anomaly detection from JP Morgan Chase.
Oh yeah.
Really very good. And we looked more into the anomaly detection piece in the end. That was the way people wanted to dig in. But he basically was doing like proper statistical analysis of anomalies and like outliers and following. I wrote it down. I forget now what the terminology was, but it's quite a common terminology in statistics. And so that was really very good. So any of the ones I've mentioned, people should definitely go watch again on YouTube when they come out. Go watch the Disney one as well, because I unfortunately couldn't go see the second one of that. But yeah, really good conference. Lots of great talks. That's the other thing. Most of the talks are recorded. The short talks never are.
Right.
So you've only got that one chance to go see it or do it or be it. So again, that makes it a little bit harder as to know which one to do. But that was the conference in a nutshell.
Well, I mean that sounds fantastic. Sounds like there's a lot going on. So I guess, in terms of, it's great as well that they're recorded. That's something that the ITAM conferences tend not to do for various reasons. It's always something that I think that ITAM Review and others are always trying to work out the balance.
I think it takes a lot of curation. Like you've got to go through each presentation with the people doing it a load of times to make sure it's all safe for recording.
Yeah. So those that are recorded from FinOpX this year, so giving our audience is kind of a mix of ITAM people, FinOps people, procurement, etc. Would you say that it's worth? Do you have to be a kind of hashtag FinOps person to watch these, or is it worth? If you're in ITAM procurement, if you're just interested, is it worth watching them anyway?
Great question. I'd be interested to see whether they publish whether it's a 100, 200, or 300. That would help. Like if you're brand new to it, maximizing FinOps education impact insights from Walmart and the FinOps Foundation, great one to go to if that's kind of a starting point.
I like the sound of that.
Yeah. So there are definitely some 100s. And maybe what I'll do is once they start being released, I might do like a glossary of who they might be suitable for. Maybe that's something we could do.
Good shout. Yeah.
If it doesn't exist, I might just ping the foundation and say, hey, just make sure when you release these, people know what level they are.
Yeah. I mean, cause Microsoft do a similar leveling system, and if you're level 100 and you end up in a level 300, you tend to regret it quite quickly.
I always say to people, if you're starting off in like technology, or you're trying to get an understanding of technology from a zero starting point, if you're in finance, if you're in ITAM and you've been an analyst but you've never gone into that, there's a course on edXL, is it called CS50. So it's computer science 50. So it's not even 100 yet. It gives you the real building blocks. It's free. It's online. So if you ever want to kind of get your starting point on understanding a bit about IT, which helps you understand programming to a basic level, understand cloud and infrastructure, just so you can hold a conversation, it's entirely free. CS50. Well worth going
on edX.
I think it's edX. Yeah, that's it. edX,
awesome.
Yeah. The guy who does it's amazing. The guy, if it's still the same guy, because they refresh it every year as well.
Right.
I can't remember if he's like Harvard or something. Like it's brilliant.
Oh well, that's a little tip for everyone. Yeah, CS50. Go and do that. But yeah, well, I mean, yeah, you've made me very excited about FinOpX, and I wasn't even there. So
XE coming in November, right?
So that's in Barcelona.
That's in Barcelona. Yeah.
Awesome. So we'll have another one of these in a few months. But yeah, I think Tale of Two Conferences, that was a fantastic tale. And looking forward to hearing you tell us about the next one.
Perfect. Thanks very much.
Nice one.